Welcome. In this video, I will address the use of Zotero on an iPad. As you know from prior videos, I use Zotero on my MacBook Pro to collect bibliographic data and PDF copies of articles that I acquire through Google Scholar or the university library, or, even though I haven't said this, from public websites. But sometimes I don't want to carry my laptop with me. So on those days, I carry just my iPad. And because I've installed the Zotero application on both devices, my MacBook Pro and my iPad, and I am consistent in storing bibliographic data and PDFs in my Zotero database, I have access to that full database regardless of which device I have at hand. If I go to a meeting with only my iPad, I have my full Zotero database with me, including copies of the PDF files for the files that I've downloaded during my research. Now, what's really cool is any annotations that I make to a PDF file or notes that I type into my Zotero database are automatically synchronized to the other device. Now, I actually have Zotero installed on many computers around my office. My iMac, two other MacBook computers, another iPad, and my Zotero database and the PDF files and the annotations are synchronized among all of these devices, and the time required to make the synchronization generally runs about a minute or two. So when I first open the Zotero application on any one of these devices, it takes a minute or two for any more recent data to be downloaded to the computer. It's not a big deal. I drink my coffee or have a sip of water, and within a couple of minutes, my database is up to date on the device that I have at hand. It's a really easy system, and I want to encourage you to use it during your college research. In this video, I'll show you how I do it, and I hope that you're able to follow my steps and have as much success using Zotero as I have. Let's get started. Here I'm displaying my iPad screen, and I've loaded the Zotero application, and you can see a list of entries in my Zotero database. Many of these entries have a PDF file associated with them. So if I click on the first entry, the PDF file for that entry opens up. And you can see that I have already annotated portions of this document. Now, if I zoom my iPad screen using the two-finger touch, many of the normal iPad finger commands continue to work even within Zotero. So I can zoom out, I can zoom in. Now, I'm going to be using an Apple Pencil just because it keeps my screen cleaner and it's a little bit easier for me to use. And I'm going to demonstrate annotating within this PDF file on the iPad. So I'm going to select the title of the article and I'm going to highlight it in yellow. So I choose yellow from the color palette, and then I just use the Zotero commands to make the yellow highlighting. I'll do the same thing to the entire abstract text. Now, I'm going to move back to my MacBook to show you that these annotations will get synchronized from the iPad back to the MacBook. Now I'm displaying the Zotero app on my MacBook Pro. The total time that I paused the recording was about 15 seconds. So the total time since I made the annotations has been less than 30 seconds. When I open the PDF file associated with that article, you can see that the annotations that I made on the iPad are now visible here on the MacBook Pro. In the current version of Zotero, which is version 6, and I'm using version 6.0.9, these annotations are not stored in the PDF as they were in prior versions of Zotero. Instead, the annotations are stored within the Zotero database and associated to the PDF file. So that allows quicker synchronization of the annotations between multiple devices. Now, to show you that annotations made here on the MacBook can be quickly transferred over to the iPad, I'm going to select text here. This time I'll pick the red color and I'll highlight some text. And you can see I've made that annotation. Now I'm going to switch back to the iPad screen. The total time that it took me to move from my MacBook back to the iPad was less than 10 seconds. I did it in real time. I did not pause the video. So this in Zotero version 6 on the Mac, the annotations move very quickly from one device to another device. I'd like to show you another trick that I occasionally use on my iPad. Because I have an Apple Pencil, I'm able to fairly easily handwrite notes into the PDF files in my Zotero database. So if I select the scribble mode and I make a text comment here in this document, I'm not going to pause the video. I'm just now going to switch to Zotero on my MacBook Pro, and you'll see that once I've synchronized my database on the iPad and synchronized the database here on the MacBook Pro, the text comment appears. Now, I accidentally closed the window and then reopened it. I fat-fingered my computer there. General rule of thumb for me, as long as both devices are connected to the same wireless network, generally the text comments, the highlighting annotations move between my devices in about a minute or two. Because I can physically only be in one place at a time, I don't know how fast these changes would move from one device to the other if I were connected to a different network, such as the Wi-Fi network on campus. I don't know how fast changes would be visible here in my office, but honestly, it doesn't matter because if I'm on campus, I'm not in my office and vice versa. Zotero on the iPad is not my preferred annotation software. I prefer to use either GoodNotes or GoodReader, two other commercial applications. But Zotero on the iPad allows me very easy access to annotations that were made either on the iPad or on my MacBook Pro. The reason I like GoodNotes and GoodReader, or I prefer those applications for annotating PDFs, is they have greater control over the types of annotations that I'm able to make. Zotero is wonderful for storing my annotations, storing my bibliographic data, sharing all of that information among my different devices. It's not the perfect annotation tool, but in my judgment, it is absolutely the perfect tool for storing and sharing research material. I hope that this quick introduction to the use of Zotero on an iPad whets your interest and encourages you to use Zotero. I have found that there is a consistent correlation between the grades earned in my classes and the use of Zotero. Students who earn A's and B's typically use Zotero. The students who earn C's and D's and sometimes F's frequently don't use Zotero. So I don't know if there's a causal relationship there, but there's definitely a correlation. So I'd encourage you to give Zotero a try on both your computer and your tablet and see if it doesn't make managing your research information a little bit easier. I look forward to seeing you in a future video, and until then, I wish you the best in all of your research. Bye for now.